Thank you, Tom, and thank you, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you, too, for the invitation. Now, it seems to me that the present problem goes far beyond the Shreddergate issues. It goes far beyond this government. And that is as far long as I can remember, there is politically, economically in Tasmania what I'd call a culture of cosiness. And it's a blight of small communities. Everybody in bed with everybody else, doing deals, and if you're not in the bed, you really are outside it and almost pariah. Now, we need to break down that culture, and to do so, we need to create far stronger institutions than we've got, and particularly institutional boundaries, separations of powers and functions which are very clear, so that we have clear standards by which to evaluate governmental behaviour. And I don't think we have that at the moment. I haven't got long, so just looking at a few of the issues. Parliament. Now really, at the moment, our Parliament is so small that it can't work properly. It's dysfunctional. It's dominated by Cabinet, particularly the lower house, because you have a doctrine of Cabinet solidarity. Once they've made a decision, they vote as a bloc. They pretty well outnumber the government party in the party room. And the government party is government party, of course, so they commit the government party to a particular line. The government party then, of course, has the numbers, and so the lower house goes along with that. The other thing which is not so often observed about the Tasmanian Parliament is that since the reduction in size, it is the most atrocious gerrymander. We think of the Hare-Clark system as fair, but with the fewer members elected by that system, the greater the gerrymander. Particularly for the major opposition party, which gets, and typically will be reduced to a dysfunctional run. Let's have a look at some figures. At the moment, about 17% of the vote is required to get a person to Parliament. So, a party can... Now, so let's say we had, the minority party with about 17%, one member. The major opposition party gets 32%. It'll only get one member. And so the majority party gets, say, 51% that way. And they will get, in each electorate, 3 members. Now, that'll give you a house in which you might, quite conceivably, a lot of the time have a major opposition party with only one member from each electorate, 5 members in the House. Now, if we went back to the 35-member lower house that we used to have, that same vote would give the major opposition party 2 members in every constituency, 10 members. Now, the government party on the current house, it has 51% of the vote. It'll have 13. So, the major opposition party gets almost 2/3 of the number of votes, but not much more than 1/3 of the number of seats. Okay, so we have at the moment a real gerrymander besides the dysfunction. The upper house. The upper house legally has just about as much or more power than any other upper house in Australia, yet politically it is so weak that sometimes in my dealings with it, it hasn't been able to amend legislation because it hasn't had the resources to have amendments properly drafted. Now, how can you put an amendment which is not properly drafted? So we need a very clear definition of the role of the upper house in the system. Okay, the role of the Speaker. The Speaker at the moment really is not enforcing standing orders. They ought to be enforced in question time, which makes it apparent questions simply are not answered. Okay, Judiciary. Current appointment processes are very muddy. You can't say it's exclusively the role of the Attorney-General, because sometimes the Attorney-General is a candidate and you can't simply allow the Attorney-General to appoint himself or herself. But the exact conventions and guidelines are very unclear. What we need, of course, is the most competent appointments, and probably we need a Judicial Appointments Commission. Somebody which at the very least nominates the candidates, and therefore it's much more difficult for government intervention to stop that. FOI, too many exceptions. Ombudsman and Auditor General, essential watchdogs. We've had a good step forward recently when they have been given their own separate budget as a separate agency, rather than being funded through government departments, but there is a need for increased funding there. Police, we've had this big argument about just what is the operational independence of the police force. Can the Minister give directions to the police with respect to particular investigations, particular incidents? Now, quite clearly, if that power exists, then we are on the way to becoming a police state. We've got the legal apparatus in place, even if it's not habitually used. So we need very much a clarification of the role of the police. Solicitor General really has at the moment a monopoly of government legal advice which is inappropriate. Needs to be other providers so we avoid a situation like what we had with the resignation of Richard Butler. Solicitor General advised Lennon in the negotiations with Butler, then advised the police that essentially his client Lennon didn't commit a crime, and then advised the Auditor General that there was the money available to pay. Now, at the end of the day, I agreed with the Solicitor General's advice on all counts, but that's not the point. Where was the independence of the advice going to the police? And the Auditor General simply wasn't there. So again, we need very much clarification of the role of the Solicitor General and the role of government legal advisors to make sure that watchdog authorities and independent law enforcement agencies get independent legal advice. Government-sponsored monopolies, things like the Federal Hotels deal. Monopolies are generally considered not to be in the public interest. Yet we have this attitude in the UK, for example, government sponsorship of monopolies ended in 1623. 1623 with the statute of monopolies. The Federal Hotels deal, because that's part of the law of Tasmania, would clearly have been illegal without express parliamentary authorisation. Now, we have a whole range of monopolies, some of which at various times come back and bite the government. Are they in the public interest? The argument for them is you won't get investment by big players without these monopolies. The argument against is, why shouldn't there be competition? So we really need this issue investigated. What I think we need in Tasmania is a royal commission, not just into this particular incident, but right across the board into the whole of governance in the state. Because under the institutions we operate with at the moment, these are the sort of events that brought us together today have happened in the past, and they will happen again in the future unless we make really quite radical institutional changes to clarify institutional roles of the major players and prevent this culture of coziness. Thank you.